All right, guys, welcome. It's George Gonzalez, owner of Nightskate, and I'm here with Tracy Banzai Ugai. I'll call her Banzai just so that I don't get confused throughout this time. So she's started her own skate company called Basics of Happy. She's pre-selling right now. Pre-sales are live on Nightskate. And since there's a few weeks left to order some, I wanted to make sure that I got in over to Long Beach with her so that we could take a look at her skate. And so she's going to go ahead and talk about why she started the company and get into, I guess, the details of the skate, since it's her skate and she can talk way more intelligently than I can. And then I'll give you my first impression as a complete novice at the end of it. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to her. Yeah, I'll go turn it over to Banzai. So.
Yeah, which is good because this is the entry-level boot. So this is more of my entry-level skate. And the reason why I started this company is I started skating 10, 11 years ago when I turned 30 and started playing roller derby. And you get in this game with skating, unfortunately, where no one can try the skates on. The sizing's a little off. The price points are a little high, so you end up getting into this game of having to just blow through a bunch of boots to be able to find one that fits you. And there's not that much information. At least when I was skating, there wasn't. There's a mic there. Sorry. At least when I was skating, there wasn't. There's nothing on YouTube about it. And so I think people still have a little bit of problems knowing about the true fits of everything. Everyone's different. So I like to say that I make skates for skaters like me, and I'm pretty much like a lifestyle skater, lifestyle outdoor skater. I love dance skating. I love going to the rink. I like going to the park. I don't cruise. I just kind of cruise around the park. I don't do too many insane tricks like backflips or even crazy stalls or slides. I'm just a cruiser at the park. And so like I wanted to make tiers of skates that were affordable for everyone, that had clear information about them, that were in good price points where people weren't blowing their budget every time, and just stuff that they could rely on to kind of progress in. So this is going to be the baseline boot. This will always be my vegan line. Right now it's glitter. It's not always going to be glitter. And so the reason why I chose this boot to start from for this line was mostly because I loved the inside with the padding. That was a big thing too. That on the inside it has some ankle padding. It actually locks your heel in a little bit. It's not super dense padding, but it is, you can see when I push into it, it's still there. It's still a little padding. The tongue's a little padded. So this does give not super strong ankle support, but decent enough ankle support where you can hold on to your edge. And the best part to look into for a boot, especially with a lower end boot, is that they are stitched on the sole as well, because then you won't have that glue rippage that you have from other boots, because you have a secondary kind of reliant of the thread. And so another thing that I learned as I was skating, I didn't really understand what edges were, and I didn't know what it felt like to even be on an edge when I skated, until I found skates that helped me actually find the edge. I talk about this a lot. I'm a heavier skater. I weigh 160 pounds. A 160-pound person as opposed to a 120-pound person on plates is going to be a little different. It's not like rollerblades where that's almost like a catch-all for all weights, sizes, everything. Unfortunately, like with plates, that's also why I have an aluminum plate instead of the plastic plates, because at least the option that I had from my factory with the plastic plates, they were too flexible for me and I didn't like it. So I ended up upgrading to an aluminum plate for that fact as well, to be able to have this service for a different weight of skaters, for you to be able to hold your edge better. Also too, I upgraded the bushings in between. Right now these ones are all prototypes, so these wheels aren't the ones that are going to be on them, but they're the same size of these wheels. And
how big is that?
This is, I think they're 52 millimeters. Okay. 52 millimeters. I'm not sure about the width. I think it might be 30 something.
And stock hardness was going to be what again?
Stock hardness of my wheels are like around 82, 83 probably. Okay. And that's like a guesstimate. And that's something that I'm very transparent about, is that like a lot of like hardnesses straight out of manufacturers are not given, especially with the stock skates. That's just an estimate from my own knowledge of the hardnesses and feeling other wheels. You can kind of tell. So that's going to be the stock hardness. They will look like this though. They will be clear, but it's going to be in the different shape. It has a little bit more of a rounded edge, but it's the same height and width. So that's another thing too. It's going to be more of a hybrid wheel too. So if you are a beginner skater, since this is an intro boot, you might want to get a softer outdoor wheel.
Okay.
That's the only thing you should have to replace on this. I ended up going in and replacing all the bushings because these ones are actually a little too soft. So I got a medium bushing in there, which means that when you're on your foot and you start using your edges, you have more support as you push into your edges. And so to go back to like the boot and why it's really important to have a good connection from like the heel to the edge of the boot to make sure that there's some stiffness going through the entire part that connects to the sole is so when your foot is sitting in it, you can push into the edges, which control the trucks. And so that's why it's really good more to have stiffness down here as a connection that's really good and you feel good in it than even testing the boot this way. Because you want to look more for construction strengths than back and forth, because that's going to be depending on what you're doing in these skates, whether it's helpful to be flexible or not back and forth, because some rink skaters don't even lace their skates up. And I have ridden these without them laced up, and they do pretty good and hold the edge still. And I think that's also too because back here is made pretty well, as well as when you push down on back here, it's pretty hard to like compress it. And that to me, I discovered was kind of the key to making the boot a little bit more sturdier, was to have it a little bit better in the backstay, because that's also where ankle control comes.
Gotcha.
To control like the heel of your boot.
I noticed compared, let me grab this skate right here. You said this was a sure grip, what again?
Stardust.
Stardust? Okay, because
yes.
I noticed it's a lot softer on the back than that. I don't know.
So like that's a difference too, that when you're in this boot, it's not going to everyone who's in skates now, which I guess you guys kind of have that sometimes. You know, when it's like too stiff in the back and you start getting blisters.
Oh yeah. No, we have our cuffs are designed to give.
Yes, your cuffs give, so you don't really get that as much unless you were in those like 90s
we don't have to like break it. Yeah, we don't have to break it.
That I used to wear when I was a kid, and that used to happen.
But I can see how that seems like this is better.
Yeah, so like that's what's gonna help is that like it has kind of like it hugs your heel and it comes up, and it's a lower cut boot than some of the other boots, which will allow for this. The people who did try this on, because I did have some skaters try this on, we were shocked. I was even shocked that when I put it on, I was able just to go skating and I didn't get any blisters from up here for being a vinyl skate. And vinyl skates usually have break-in time, usually have some of that. But as I discovered that the way that the boot is made from the base, as I'm building boots, because I'm building a custom boot right now, as long as the outsole is good and as long as the construction up to here is really good, that's what makes the boot really perform well. And that was also discovered too after being in, I don't know if you've seen rink skates that fold down on the sides. So there's some rink skates that people don't lace up at all, and they fold the tongue completely down.
I've seen people do that before.
And I actually skated in a pair of those, and I'm like, whoa, these feel like they're laced up. And so, which made me think maybe it doesn't have that much to do with up here, and it needs to start with a really good base. And so that's why these boots, every time people put them on, they feel like it's a little bit more comfortable. I think too, it's because we are going to have them in half sizes. And so the sizing is a little weird, as we discussed. And
one thing I'll mention is anybody who pre-orders, I will call on the final day of pre-orders before I submit my order and confirm all the sizing, because I know it seemed like a little chaotic if you were following it. So don't worry about that. I'll make sure that we double check all that stuff before we place the final order. Yeah,
and that's the biggest thing too, is that sizing is a problem across the board, especially in this price point. It's because it depends whether your foot's wide or narrow. And then also too, the reason why I want this to be a wider boot is because I personally have a wider foot. And I found that when you have to size up in a skate, when you have a wider foot, you have more room up here, it pushes your foot back, and then this isn't in the right alignment with the ball of your foot because you have so much room in your toe because you need it for the width.
Yeah.
And so that's why
I got regular feet. Sorry, wide feet people, I don't understand your pain.
I know. And that's like the worst part is that like, and that's what I say too. I was like, I'm really stoked that when I gave this to people that did have narrow feet or normal feet that weren't wider, they were able to still feel secure in this boot. And so I'm hoping it just opens it up where I say we as in me too, because I still suffer with that. My high-end boots still don't fit me perfectly unless I get a specific width.
Wow.
So like that's like another thing too. And so I'm hoping that this could be more of the people's boot that have wide feet, maybe like me.
It's common in rollerblading too. There's certain brands that are are best for people with wide feet, and some that are known to not do well for people with wide feet at all. So.
Yeah, and so it's just kind of that game of the shoe game as we've discovered with sizing, unfortunately. But that all sizes vary between companies, like even Nike, Adidas, all those companies. Yeah. All those shoes fit different in different sizes. And so the way I'm going to be sizing this is by millimeters of your foot. Yes, none of our rollers have millimeters. But converting centimeters to millimeters isn't bad. It's like the move of a decimal. Yeah. So,
but now convert that to freedom per bushel to get American sizes.
Yes, and so
that's where it gets complicated.
That's why we are not doing American sizing. And so my size of the boot is going to be my length of my foot is 244. So I'd be in it like a 245 or 250. I'm encouraging you to think of that if this is the entire length of your foot, you're going to want 5 more millimeters for a tiny bit of room for the padding within the boot and just a tiny bit of room around your toe. So if I'm 244, so I add 5, so I'd be about 250, so I'd be a 250 boot. And that's basically how we're going to run the measurements, because I really want you guys to measure your feet because they are in half sizing, but they're not exact half sizing. We were actually talking about it earlier. It's very confusing that sometimes there's one number with 2 sizes attached to it. And that's what kind of happens with this boot when I was converting them to American sizes. And then on top of it, most of our collective are female. And sometimes too, we have to change our female shoe sizes over again. So that's like another conversion. It's just too much room for error with conversions that have no standards.
Yeah,
so,
fair enough.
Right. So I think it's the best to just measure your foot. You're going to know all of this anyway, so he'll be able to tell you 5 millimeters more and help you figure out how to measure it. I'm going to have a reel on my own brand page to show you how to measure your foot exactly and how you can do it by yourself, because a lot of people say you need someone to help you trace it and everything, but figured out how to do it by yourself. So everyone should have a little bit more exact measuring, and I think that's why people feel extra comfortable in this boot, because a lot of women size 7s are 5.5s. And 7's a really common size for women. 8, 9, I think too, and 9 is also a half size. So like when people are going into these kind of boots, they have to like always compromise their size, where it's like way too big for them or it's way too small, which was what I would do because I like a tight boot. So yeah.
Fair enough, and I think we've covered just about everything, right?
Yep.
That seems about it.
We covered everything. Oh, yes. People always ask about the lace hooks. I decided to not go with lace hooks because for this boot, I felt like it was unnecessary, and I really like the way it laced up like this. I'm actually going to decide whether I'm going to do my suede boots like that because I kind of like it. But, yeah, for this round and this line, we won't be having those lace hooks at the top at all.
Perfect. Awesome. Yeah. All right, so let me grab that, and I'll go into my first impressions as, a complete... I have no knowledge about skates, but I do touch a lot of skates.
It's true.
Because of my shop. And I will say that when you compare this to a lot of the skates that are priced similarly that I come in contact with, it's just notable. It's obvious that this is better quality, and that it was just designed with, it seems to me like it was designed by a skater, right? Like I can just tell. And yeah, I think I like I said, as a rollerblader, I can just see the quality. I can feel it. Like I said, I come in contact with all of the budget skates and all of even the higher end skates in this price point, and I think this one is, right up there with it. It's definitely competitive in the market. It's ready to compete with the big boys. So,
so yes,
that's my first impression of it. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add.
No, that's all. Yeah, pretty much. This boot for me, I'm in high-end Adidas boots that are like carbon fiber, heat moldable lining. And because my foot just fits so well in this boot, when I actually have super feet aftermarket insoles in here, and they have memory foam in them as well. And if you up your size by 5 millimeters, it'll leave enough room for a good insole. Nice. If I wear that and my thick socks, it mimics a pretty good like memory foam boot to like fit you pretty well. So I'm pretty happy with the shape, the heel shape and everything. I'm working with mounting right now. A lot of price point skates get mounted too far forward, and that's why a lot of people are falling off of them. Notice where your heel is and make sure that your wheel is lined up with your heel to be able to support it, and it's not falling off. Like these are too short mounted. So this is something that I deal with in prototyping to make sure that all the plates will be mounted in the right place before they get to you.
Perfect. So that's pretty much it. Pre-orders are open until the 31st so that I have enough time to call everybody and place my order on the 1st. I'm going to bring in a significant amount, but the pre-orders definitely help. Basically every skate that's ordered allows me to buy 2 more pairs. So get your pre-orders in. It helps me increase my PO. It helps skater own business.
Yep, helps
get
me
off
be
the
able
ground.
to start this.
So I'm big on that. It's part of what I'm skater owned as well. So I think it's very important to be intentional about supporting these types of businesses. You know, spending a few $100 on a business like this is definitely going to do much more than spending it on one of the larger companies, right? So, and it also helps people get inventory in, right? I think one of the things we've noticed is with the lack of competition, there's just so few places to get skates. So this will allow quality skates to be able to hit the market and fill that need. So if there's nothing you want to add, I'm done. Again, get your pre-orders in. They're very important.
Get them in.
And I'll talk to you guys again soon.
Yes, thank you. Bye.